Hey Sarah, do you ever just like put something off that you know you absolutely have to do, and you're just like, no, I'll do it next week. You keep pushing it back, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in some kind of like problem that you cannot get that you not cheaply get yourself out of.
100%. I'm actually dealing with something like that right now. I went to get the brakes done on my car a couple months ago, and uh, the guy who runs the auto shop was like, "Hey, just giving you a heads up, the treads on your tires are really, really low. Like, you probably need to invest in new tires." And I was like, "Okay, like right now or in the future?" And he was like, "You know what, probably something that doesn't need to be done like right at this moment, but definitely soon." And so because he said not right at this moment, I have now not gotten new cars for my tires. And it's been a couple of months. And I thought about it the other day and was just like, wow, nervous for, if and when these tires pop, because it's something that I know I need to take care of. I have the funds to take care of it. I'm ready to act on it, but just from a time perspective, haven't had the chance to get back around to it, haven't had the chance to call, the auto body shop back and really schedule it. So absolutely, I think that's something that I'm dealing with right at this moment.
Especially in Texas, because if you got ball tires, you can be slip slapping around in the
Yep.
rain. Because our
Yep.
roads are particularly like awful in the rain. Everyone makes fun of Texas drivers. They're like, "Oh, they can't drive in the rain," but also our roads are like it feels like it's made out of bar soap.
Yep.
It's just like
They're
it's just like a
slick.
beautiful. They're so slick,
Yep.
and it's like in other states when you go over there. They're built. I don't know what the difference is. I'm not a concrete asphalt specialist, but if you come down to Texas and you drive in the rain, you'll get it. Especially if you got like near ball tires. Yeah,
Exactly.
no, I found so my recent example is like pest control. Like I I found ants in the garage the other day, and it was after the fact that somebody had come out and been like, "It'll be X amount of money to spray the outside of your house, make sure everything." And they came in through my garage, so my garage door, another door, and then like they found their way all the way to my recycling bin that lives in my garage, and I just like was like, if I had just done the thing and done it then. But and was we talk with Alan about it's also a little bit on that business to follow up with me like
Yep.
a couple of weeks later and be like, hey, remember we came out, it's I still haven't heard from them, and it's been like a month and a half or whatever.
Totally. And if they had sent you a text message, a phone call, or an email, think about it, maybe a week after they came out, just reminding you as you're sitting there, spraying Raid all over your house, I'm sure you'll feel much more likely to give them a call. Just as if the auto body shop that I went out to maybe sent me, an email or a text message or gave me a call a month later and was like, hey, Sarah, how are you? I know that we had talked about possibly getting you new tires. Do you have a couple minutes to come in next week and take an estimate? And I think Alan does such a good job of just articulating how much money I think especially contractors in the residential home improvement space are leaving on the table by not sending that text message and by not sending that email. And our conversation with him, we really talk about the right way to rehash, to send these messages to homeowners. We talk about the best way to implement this type of program without making it overly complicated on your call center. And then we just talk about how it can help improve your sales process and really your customer service. And to learn more about Alan, go ahead and visit theultimaterainmaker.com and enjoy our conversation with Alan about rehash.
Hey, Alan, thank you so much for joining us this morning. How are you doing?
Fantastic. How you doing, Douglas?
That's I love to hear that. So I mean, we just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about how you help businesses achieve their goals?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been in the home improvement industry for 37 years. I was in it directly for 20 years. Actually started out as an installer when I was 18. By the time I was 21, I was knocking on doors, making appointments and going in home and selling. Then by the time I was 27, I think, I ran the marketing for a company in the UK. The company was doing about $30 million a year, £30 million, actually $60 million at the time. It was like 2 for 1 on the dollar. And then they bought a sister company in New Jersey, and they asked me to come and work in that company in New Jersey. So I came to that, moved to New Jersey, started working with that company, ran the marketing for that company for a period of time, of 5 years. And in that time, because of my sales background, I also did the rehash. So the company was doing about $4 or $5, $6 million, somewhere in that range over the 5 years I worked in that capacity. And I was bringing in between $500,000 and $750,000 a year just in rehash. So then we created another company that started to import these very ornate English sunrooms, and I went back in the field selling. So from 2000 to 2004, in that 5 year span, I sold $9.8 million worth of sunrooms. My best year being $2.65 million, and then I decided I'd had enough of the snow in New Jersey.
Fair.
enough of winter. So I moved to California. When I moved to California, I started consulting with companies in the industry. And one of the first companies I consulted with was Renewable Anderson of Los Angeles and San Diego. And at the time, they called me because they wanted more leads. And when I looked at their business, it wasn't that they needed more leads. They needed more sales from the leads they were already driving. So I did a lot of things with restructuring their marketing. We ended up reducing their marketing costs by 40%, grew their sales by 20%, took their rehash program. They already had a rehash program doing $44,000 a month, took it to $200,000 a month. And I dropped $500,000 to their bottom line in 6 months. So that got them out of trouble. It was great. And then went on to work with other Renewable Anderson dealers as well, and then many other companies in this industry. In the last 17 years, we've driven way more than $60 million in additional revenue for companies. Last year was $20 million just from rehashing leads that companies have already paid for. They've already paid millions and millions of dollars for leads, and there's money in those leads for sure. And I have specific ways of finding that money. So that's really the bottom line. That's what I do. And I love doing it. Just absolutely love finding money where people think there is no more money in those leads.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that companies love it when you come in and find that as well, because I think you're really onto something where we're spending, as home improvement companies, so much money on leads. Everything's leads, right? Like that's what really fuels the business. So even if we can work them, 15, 20% more efficiently, that's going to mean huge things for the business. And I know you're kind of, and you even spoke to this in your background, really, really an expert in rehash. Can you just give us, I'm sure a lot of the contractors who listen to this are familiar with rehash, but can you just give us kind of like, what is the definition to you of rehash?
Sure. So the definition of rehash in the home improvement sense is a salesperson goes out, they give a bid on a job, they don't sell the job, and they don't sell the project, and then they might follow up with a lead for a couple of weeks, and then it kind of goes by the wayside. So rehash is taking that lead that was given an estimate and being able to communicate in a way to get back into the house for a second chance opportunity, and then having a system and a structure and scripting to be able to convert that into a sale, which we do very, very successfully. Now, there is another part to rehash, which is, hey, we've got a whole bunch of leads that we never managed to actually give a bid to. How do we go back and we communicate with those people in different ways to be able to get new appointments out of them? And that's something else that I do with my Rainmaker system. But rehash in its pure definition in this industry basically is you're given a bid, you didn't sell the job, and someone else does some follow-up, gets either the same salesperson back in the house or a sales manager back in the house, and then makes a sale from them.
And I think, that sounds like, easy enough, but I think when people start, they start pushing towards, oh, I need to do this rehash, they may feel some resistance in themselves or from people around them, like, oh, we don't need to go do that. Those are old, they didn't buy for a reason. We need to move forward. You might have squeaky wheels or whatever you want to call them.
Sure.
But what are like the more compelling reasons why every company should do a rehash? So it's like, if you do have someone who is like, it's not even, an owner or something, what do you say to them? Like, what's there may not be a silver bullet, but you know what I mean? Like, what's some of the good reasons?
Well, I mean, there kind of is really, and here's a here's a number of compelling reasons to do rehash. Number one, any company has already spent a lot of money on leads, right? So they might be spending $200 on a lead, $300, they get up to $600 on a lead. Can you imagine that? You spend a $600 on a lead or appointment, and then you got 10 of those, and you just left them by the wayside. Oh, well, they're not going to buy up of us. That's $6,000, right? I mean, over the course of a year, an average salesperson, an average company will spend $125,000 on one salesperson across the course of a year to drive appointments. Now, the benefit is you get to recoup the marketing dollars if you do the rehash. So that's one. Well, first of all, you get revenue. Okay. First of all, you drive revenue. Second of all, you recoup marketing dollars, because for every dollar you didn't get, you've spent money to drive that lead. But if you manage to sell, and you know that your marketing expenditure is 10% or 15%, then ultimately you're recouping that. So if you do $100,000 in a month and you recoup 10% of your marketing expenditure, you just got $10,000 in fresh money to spend on more leads. The third thing is that you get to learn what the salespeople are missing in the home. And this is invaluable, because all of a sudden you can bring salespeople back in, retrain them. And from that retraining, their close rate goes up on the front end. So now you're not wasting as many leads in the first place, because you realize that, Jimmy over here wasn't doing what he should be doing. He wasn't demonstrating the window properly, or he wasn't presenting payments and finance, which is a major thing that a lot of salespeople miss. They ask the question, are you interested in finance? No, we're not interested in finance. Oh, okay, that's it. That conversation dead. Sarah and I were having this conversation the other day on the webinar that we did. But you learn all these things through doing rehash, and then that becomes a retraining opportunity for either one salespeople or all the salespeople. It's like, hey, we need to dig in here and really make a major impact. The other thing is, obviously, any money that gets given away in rehash typically just gets given away from the salesperson's commission. Now, as someone who's been a salesperson in this industry, if someone said to me, hey, listen, we got Mrs. Jones back on the phone, and she said she's kind of ready to move forward. You just need to do a little bit of a deal on it. And I'd go around there and sell a $50,000 sunroom, which is what the average ticket was when I was selling those sunrooms. But I had to give away a couple of $1,000s out of my $5,000 commission, but I picked up 3,000. Would I do that? Absolutely. Give me 5 of those. Give me 5 of those a week. I'll go pick up 5 of those a week. Thanks very much.
I think that's a no-brainer for any salesperson.
It's an absolute no-brainer. So the company doesn't give away any profit. The salesperson makes money that they didn't think they were going to get anyway, and they're only in the home for a short period of time. They haven't got to do another 2-hour presentation. So the company makes the marketing dollars back. They make profit back. They learn what the salespeople are missing in the home, and it just exponentially grows the business. That's the benefit of rehash. It's not just to like, oh, well, those people have gone and forgot. Let's get some new leads. Let's just keep spending the money on new leads. And by the way, right now in this industry, leads are starting to dip for companies. We've had 2 years of this magnificent flood of leads and sales, and now leads have started to trail off a little bit for companies, and it's like, okay, we need to pay attention a little bit more. Now's the time to dig into rehash, because there is money in there guaranteed.
I like the idea too that as we think about a lot of the challenges facing home improvement companies as these leads slow down, it's like we want to make sure we're retaining our salespeople. And I think giving salespeople the extra support with rehash campaigns will help you retain salespeople long term, which is really, really important, because it's a layup for a salesperson. And then they're going to be excited and more pumped up on their next sales call, knowing that they have the support of the company behind them following up with these leads.
Yeah, on average in my rehash program across my clients, we get about a 50% close rate, 50. Some companies get as high as 60 and 70% close rate, because the scripting sets up the conversation so that the people are ready to move forward. So, and again, it's not about giving away a ton of money. No one has to give away a ton of money, but we have to make the project affordable, which is where health comes in with financing, obviously. To be able to help people, get the project that they want to, and nothing's getting any cheaper.
Oh no, it's not. And that's interesting. You bring up scripting. I think it's always interesting when you go into a company and you're trying to find out, what's not working, what could be improved. But do you have I don't want you to give away all your secrets, Alan, because I know you got lots of secrets. I mean, you're the guy. But is there anything that you look out for that's just like, oh, these guys definitely are like need help in this area when it comes to their scripting? Like what are some things that like pop out to you? Because I think scripting to me is very interesting because I'm a content person. I write. But what are some things somebody could be doing in that respect?
It's a great question, and obviously I can't give you the exact script. We vary that from company to company, not greatly, but we do refine that from company to company. But here's what doesn't work from a scripting perspective. Hey, Mrs. Jones, we saw you last night. We can do a better deal on your project. Are you interested? You just killed all credibility. You're probably going to get a 1-star review on Yelp. Well, if I signed up with these people last night, I would have paid more money than I paid today because they're offering me a cheaper thing or something, whatever. So that's definitely not the way to go about it. What we find is with rehash is that 5 days is a sweet spot. Wait 5 days after the bid and then give a call and then talk through how you could potentially save them some money. By the way, or actually how you can make the project more affordable. Affordable is a real key word that drives people's interest, because affordability doesn't come from making a 20 grand job 15 grand, and I never ever talk about having to make a 20 grand job 15 grand to do rehash. We talk about giving away a minimum amount of money. It could be $500, right? But when we use payments, the payments make the project more affordable. The longer the term, the better the payments, the more flexible it is for the customer. And what with nowadays, and Sarah and I were talking about this again last week, was the fact that refinance has dropped by 76% in the last couple of months. People have got to find the money from somewhere. They need to find the money from somewhere. They're either going to spend cash, or if they don't have the cash, which most people may not have $20,000 sitting around, then they're going to look to finance it in some way, shape, or form. Does that answer your question, Doug?
Yeah, definitely. And I am like such a novice at this like sales stuff. I think that's what makes Sarah and I's relationship on this podcast very interesting, because she's she used to do sales and home improvement, and I'm just like, I'm a marketing guy. I'm just like, I don't know. You just show up with your shovel and you're like, let me do some yard work or something. It's not that easy. But my other question is this: you said 5 days after the bid is like a part of the window. And I guess, and I like to ask the dummy questions. When is it too long for a lead to sit there? Or is there ever a too long for a lead to sit there? And I only ask this because there might be somebody on listening right now that's like, oh, well, that was 2 years ago. Like that's not worth chasing down.
Sure.
Is there like a formula? It's like, okay, well, if it was 2 years ago.
We typically look at leads that are up to 12 months old. Okay. And we go back 12 months. Now, some people are going to say, well, 12 months ago, my prices were completely different. I can't give money off of that price. That's exactly right. So we have a script to help overcome that, because not only are their prices different, but every other company in that market has got different prices, because everybody's raw materials went up, everybody's gas went up, everybody's labor went up, whatever happened. So there are ways to overcome that. But we typically go back about 12 months. What happens is we find that after 12 months, you get to serve, people have moved, people have already done the project, et cetera, and you've got a diminishing return. Some companies, we go back as much as 18 months, but it just depends on the market as to what's going on there. But we always look for, where are we hitting that diminishing return, where it's just like we're doing too much effort to try and get a deal. But we're always moving forward. We might go back 12 months, but we're always moving forward and saying, okay, what did we see 5 days ago, 5 days ago, 5 days ago? And every day there's new rehashable leads. So we're on the new rehashable leads. And the newest ones are the most important ones. The newest ones are still baking in the oven. They're still the hot leads. So we use those leads first and then work backwards in time, bit by bit.
Yeah, speed to lead is important on that first bit, but it's also important as you continue to follow up, which is not something I think every contractor thinks about. As we think about rehash, we've talked to scripting. So it's obviously calling out background leads, calling homeowners. So there's so many different mediums which we can kind of communicate with our customers now, whether it's phone call, email, text. What are different ways that you've seen some of your clients rehash beyond just calling out to customers, maybe through email, text message? What are some creative ways you've seen them do it?
So a lot of people they'll either do a combination of things of either call and text only, or I have a platform which I created 4 years ago where we can do email, text, and ringless voicemail to be able to get in touch with people, and we mix that in with live calls to be able to drive inbound inquiries. Now, texting is very useful because obviously it's convenient. It's easy for people to text. You know, if the thought of them calling back, oh, yeah, I've got to find time for it and everything else, they could just text while they're standing in line at the post office or something. You know, so it's so easy and convenient. But there's nothing like the phone. The phone is it. I mean, literally, you know, you put these things in combination because they have a stacking effect. But the truth is, there's nothing like getting someone on the phone and having a conversation. You can't have that conversation over text. You can start the conversation over text, but you need to continue it on the phone because that's where you get the qualified quality appointments to go to dive back into.
Right. So maybe with rehash, using text, using email as a way to get people on the phone to have the conversation. Correct. Versus trying to rehash through text and through email, which might not be as
through email. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Which is literally, it just fritters out to nothing if you try and I'm not saying it can't be done, but you know, your conversion rate becomes lower because your conversion rate to appointment becomes lower because there's just not that rapport there.
Right. Absolutely. Which is the same as when you generate the lead initially. You know, you don't want to essentially qualify a lead over email or text message either. You really want to, you know, get that lead in, call them, understand it, and then confirm the appointment via text and email. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, exactly. And then what are some mistakes when you first start working with a company or instituting a rehash program? What are some mistakes that you see early on with them trying to kind of start this new type of program?
A couple of things is they either overcomplicate it, and it's really fairly simple. And here's one of the things that a lot of companies presume before they even get into rehash. Oh, I've got to hire a new person to do that. No, most companies don't. You need one of your person that's really good on the phone. You can carve out 1 or 2 hours a day, depending on the company. I mean, if it's a big company, you need a full-time person that's going to run this all day long. Maybe you need 2 full-time people. I've got companies that are doing 75 to 100 million, they've got 2 full-time people on the phone. That's all they do, rehash. I've got companies that are smaller that are doing, 5, 6, 7, 8 million, $10 million. They got one person that's running this kind of, 4 or 5 hours a day. We've got other companies that are doing it just 1 hour a day. And some companies are doing it 30 minutes a day. But 30 minutes a day will drive you revenue profitably that another activity, you're either spending money to chase in the hope of money, or you just have someone spend that 30 minutes or an hour a day and literally bring in revenue because it's just sitting there waiting to be collected. And one of the key things, by the way, I don't know if I'm answering your question directly, you have to come back and remind me of the question, but one of the key things here is many companies don't follow up. So if you're the company that does follow up, you're the one that will get the deal, right? It's that simple. Otherwise, people are just going to randomly choose it. Oh, well, look, here's company A, company B, company C. Oh, kind of, this is middle of the road. Let's go with this middle of the road thing. But if you call and book a second appointment, the chance of you picking up the deal is very, very high. So sorry, Sarah, back to your question because I can't remember if I've answered the right question or not.
Can I give a real world example of this? Because I'm a homeowner. Obviously, I'm in my garage because I've been exiled. But so here's my real world example for anyone who's listening. We had pest control people come out the other day, and they quoted us whatever amount they quoted us, and we never got back to them because we're just busy. We got a newborn, we've got people coming into town, it's Austin, everybody wants to come and visit and have fun. So, at the end of the day, we don't really have time to go call the pest control people back. And then the other day I found sugar ants in my garage, right over my shoulder, guys. And I had to find where they were coming from, kill them, use all the pesticide stuff that I have in the house and all this stuff. And as I was doing it, I was like, I wish they had called me back because I probably would have bought, and I wouldn't have to go through all of this stuff that I had to clean up. And that's pest control, right? And that's like anything in the house. Like, if somebody went on my roof and they found a problem and I was like, I'll take care of it, next storm or something, or before the next storm. I wait. The next storm happens and I'm screwed, right? And I wish they had called me back. So from a customer perspective, there is that sentiment where it's just like, I'm too busy to call you. Please, someone call me back and like follow up with me.
Yeah. And by the way, back to the scripting, the way that we start out with the scripting is it's very customer service orientated. Nothing's like hardcore on the phone. Hey, buy now. We want, be our customer, whatever. We want to find out what happened in that situation. What was the customer? Did the customer, were the customer's needs met as we went through the conversation, as the company went through the conversation? So, and that's because we come off with that approach. No one really has not too many people have a problem with it. They're not going, oh, no, hang on, you want to sell me something over the phone. They feel like they're being served, which ultimately builds your reputation anyway.
Totally, because there could have even just been a misunderstanding, a lack of alignment on that initial bid estimate that was no fault of the salesperson, no fault of the homeowner. Maybe their needs have changed, and like being able to call out to them, understand, right? Like if they had called Doggo as he was looking at those ants, I'm sure it's going to be a very different level of urgency than what it initially was. So even making that call out can be really, really important. And it's something that I feel like contractors who are newer, maybe they just open their company, they don't feel as comfortable making that call because they don't want to bother homeowners, or they get a little upset that they feel like, oh, the homeowner didn't choose me, like kind of a little bit slighted. So I think like that can help overcome that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Just think about it as serving people. If you're serving people and you want to help people out, and don't be upset if they went somewhere else, but learn from it. Learn from that. Why did they go with the other person? Why did they go with the other company?
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. Like, is that something that you tell people to ask if they do these a rehash campaign? They get someone on the phone, they've already bought with someone else. Do you tell them to, like, do you ask hey, like, why did you go with them, or is that part of the program?
Yeah. What made you choose? What made you choose this other company? That's the question that we ask. Some people will tell, some people won't tell. It's fine, but at least you might get some feedback from it. Even if it was, oh my God, the salesperson was whatever, and you get some kind of feedback on that, like, oh, hang on, do we really want this person representing us in the house, type of thing. But then the other thing is, if someone has gone ahead with another company, if you've got multiple products in your company, let's say the customer bought a roof, right, and they bought it off of someone else, but you also do windows, siding, bathrooms, whatever it might be. You say, oh, okay, oh, I'm glad. Are you happy with what you have? Yeah, we do. Okay, well, just to let you know, we also do windows, siding, and bathrooms. Which one of these projects are you thinking about doing next? Oh, you do bathrooms? I didn't realize you did that. We're looking at that right now. Boom, you turn that dead opportunity or that lost opportunity into another appointment for a different product.
Yeah, the cross-sell and the upsell too. And it's if you market
you have
yourself
someone on the phone. Yeah. When you have someone on the phone, there's always an opportunity there. Even if it's just to leave a good impression. That's it. There's always an opportunity there. Because they might tell their neighbor, oh, listen, so-and-so, that this company does X, Y, Z, you might want to give them a call. You never know where it's going to lead.
Yeah. You definitely that word of mouth that everybody is like, so like, oh, I get that word of mouth marketing. I don't need to do all that, like that. This is definitely part of that. I actually have a kind of, it's a kind of like a psychological question or something. But people who want to get into this or try this, and we talked a little bit about them, people who are a little bit maybe hesitant to get on the phone. Do you have any advice for them to I guess not like a pep talk, because that's not necessarily what I'm looking for, but like what is like, if they have any blockers that are preventing them from getting on the phone more because they want to focus on their trade or whatever excuse or reason they find to not do what's right for their sales process, like, do you have any advice for them or anything just to kind of like break through that, like that psychological fog? Because we all have that where we know we need to be doing something but we don't do it. Is there anything that you would share?
The biggest thing I can share is just do you want to serve people, right? Because ultimately this is what business is about. It's about serving people. And if you're not serving people long term, you won't have a long-term business. So if you want to serve people, then do what it takes to serve the people, meaning pick up the phone, have a conversation with them. Nothing needs to be pushy, nothing needs to be hard sell or whatever it may be. It just needs to be a conversation that says, how can I help this person out? How can I help this person get the project done right? Because if they go to someone else, they might get the project done wrong, and because you didn't pick up the phone and call them and know that you would do the best job for them, they could go with some, fly-by-night company that just started up last week, thought it was a great idea, and end up with a horrible job that end up spending more money.
And I guess this is our my final question, but I mean, there's so many moving parts to a sales team, and you mentioned the adding the rehash part is simpler than it seems, right? It's you don't overcomplicate it, but at the end of the day, what makes a great rehash program? What makes them successful? What are some of the core things that you see from the companies that adopt the program that they're like, okay, I know they're going to nail this because I see they're doing this thing?
Sure. Number one thing is to have a solid script that asks good questions and then has some way of communicating as a way to help those people out. Number two is having a system to follow. So literally every day, here's the system, leads from 5 days ago. That's what we're calling people from last Thursday. And here's the system that we follow. We call it this time of the day. We call it this many times over the course of a number of days, et cetera, et cetera. And then measuring everything, right? So you measure how many calls, you measure how many people did you connect with, how many people did that convert into appointments, and we look at all these different things and we say, okay, well, if I called this many people and then I spoke to this many people, is that ratio what I deem acceptable? Or if I called at a different time of day, would that give me a better result? And then from the appointments that you set, or from the people that you speak to, how many appointments are you setting? What's that percentage? And how can we improve that? So measuring is a key thing, because you get to reflect and say, how can I improve each one of these metrics? Because if you improve each one of them, everything grows exponentially, okay? And then you look at the appointments that you set and you measure how many of those appointments are being sold. Why did the ones that didn't buy not buy? Could we have said something different on the front end? Are the salespeople trained in what they should really be saying as they go in the home? And by the way, everything from scripts from the call center to emails that go out to the script for the salesperson need to be consistent. You need to have a consistency across the scripts. They don't need to be the same. They need to be consistent in what's being said, because the more consistent you are, the higher the conversion. If the call center is saying one thing and the salesperson saying something completely different, the trust factor just goes down the toilet, and then people are going, this doesn't sound right. Either other than consciously, they think it doesn't sound right, and they're less likely to buy.
No, thank you for sharing that. I think those are like 3 very easy takeaways: consistency and message, and just get started. I think it's easy for contractors to look at rehash and be like, oh, it's so complicated. And I think the way that you've broken it down today has actually been really manageable in understanding that this is a program that you could start with 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes a week, and it will make a huge impact.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Alan. We loved having you on. This was super, super valuable. And to learn more about Alan, have him help you on rehash or anything when it comes to business coaching, feel free to visit his website at ultimaterainmaker.com. And have a great day, everyone. Thanks again, Alan.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Doug. Good speaking with you.